Hey guys, what's up? Itchla coming back to ya with another episode of Car Rides Witchla. And today on Car Rides Witchla, we have, well, we've actually had like a lot of things that we've been meaning to kind of bring up and mention. Um, so that's not really anything new, honestly. What Yeah, no, I don't really think there's much new, period. If I'm being completely honest, I just don't. I don't really think there's too much going on or anything like that. I guess I was a bit rushed at the end here, but what else is new? Like, the timing can always be a little bit tricky, so just try to, just try our best, I guess. It's all you can ever really do in life. Um, and anyways, yeah, I mean it's like I guess in a way it's good. I'm starting to try to use my voice for more fun interactions with people, less serious. For a while I was really down in the dumps because it's basically it was like it's always serious mode. And even on this show for some reason I can't reactivate the fun mode that I had for uh, some episodes, I think mostly in the beginning. It's difficult to reactivate it, you know? And so it brings us to now. And now it's like, I don't know, there's always kind of this serious vibe or seriousness nature to things. And yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else to say about it, really. That's just how it's been. I guess I'll start with talking about, like, the thing I've wanted to talk about since yesterday night. And it is this idea about people and their interest and obsession with pets. And honestly, I think it actually makes a lot of sense. Um, from my perspective, though, I always felt like, it was necessary to prioritize um, people over animals, which is like apparently it's a very controversial opinion to have. I'm not sure if it's the default, but in just my small sample size like experience with people, everybody loves animals. They love pets, and they're really willing to go through quite great lengths to justify pets and to just really love them and care for them. And then it's like for a person, then that's like a second thought. For whatever reason, then when it comes to people, it's different. And a lot of people, like, they don't really care about people as much. Now, I'm sure kind of the reason for this phenomena is pretty obvious. It's like humans and I guess technically any animal really, they don't tend to show too much solidarity amongst one another. Just doesn't seem to be the case. So, there is that to deal with. And yeah, I don't know. I guess is there not like an incentive for that? I mean, but what's weird about modern culture is that in modernity, you almost like hate your family. And it's this odd phenomena that occurs where it's like, you for some reason you hate your family, and people, complain and they want to be left alone, and there's all these kind of weird feelings and dialogues about stuff, and it's a lot of times it's often things that it doesn't really make sense from a historical or survival standpoint. If you think about humans for most of history, to hate your family would be a horrible idea. I mean, usually in the past you were very tethered to your family anyways. And so, what I'm thinking when I say this is it's like reflective of a lot of the morals of, honor your father and mother, and, all these like principles and ideas that are in, I assume, basically every religion. I think it kind of stems from that. There's no advantage really to being at odds with your parents, and yet it's so common nowadays where it's like people hate their family, they hate their friends, they hate this, they hate that. It's actually crazy. Like, it's really crazy if you step back and think about it. And then at the same time, there are tons of people who love animals. They love animals. They will bend over backwards for animals, do all kinds of nice things for animals, and maybe not for, their family members or for things like that. Now, interestingly enough, at least from most of the people who have articulated the logic, this stems from the fact that an animal is innocent and a human is not. There really is like this aggressive and pervasive view that because something is innocent, it deserves grace and it deserves mercy. You know, there's like a really clear kind of line that a lot of people draw. And I guess I just don't really see it. Like, in my opinion, I think pets are incredibly important. It's very clearly documented that, if somebody has like a good, well-trained dog, they tend to live longer. They tend to do better in life. They tend to be happier, right? So, I mean, you could easily make the argument that, a single well trained dog and a single good cat, I mean, really could make a profound difference in a person's life versus not having any pets. So it's not like there's any reason to diminish the value of pets and animals, but it's just what I see and experience from people is like the pets really, they have almost like an exclusively positive association with pets and animals, but then with people it's almost like negative. Like we view people in the abstract as horrible. Now, of course, this being said, a lot of people also can be afraid of dogs or afraid of animals, and I'm not really talking about that. I think that's kind of not, I don't know. I guess people can be afraid of people too, but it's too much to, that's not really what my premise or my point is. Um my point is that I just think it's so important to prioritize human needs and human care before pets. And pets kind of introduce a lot of exclusivity and inequality, at least the way I see it. I mean, it's different when somebody just has some like dog, that they randomly found somewhere, or they found a stray cat and took it in, versus like, special dogs and special cats. I mean, and really when it comes to dogs in particular, really the benefit of a well-trained dog is profound. But a lot of these are gatekept by substantial financial expenditures being required for you to have like an amazing dog. Um, and so there's definitely a barrier, even when it comes to being able to get a good cat or a good dog. Obviously, if you have an unlimited budget, your chances are way higher of getting something that is well trained or a specific breed. And whereas, again, like the bulk of people, especially at this point, don't really have the finances for it. So, to me, there is something unethical about like some people get to indulge, have pets, live life to the fullest, and then other people like are starving and like barely making it by. Like they don't have any pets, they can't afford any of that stuff. You see what I'm saying? I mean, that is such a, there is something like conscious and evil about that. I feel like, at least, because, and again, I'm not saying this is how things should be allocated, but it's an important mental exercise that if you took all the time, effort, energy, and resources that go into pets, that go into pet stores, pet food, if you took all that and like allocated it towards helping the poor, for example, um, you would you would help a lot of lives. You would fundamentally be able to change. If we just get rid of pets entirely, and again just reallocate all the money, effort, time, and energy put into pets, and then put it towards people, specifically like helping the poor, you would save so many lives. You would touch so many lives. And I think that is like an important thing. And of course, this isn't realistic, but it's a hypothetical. It's a thought experiment. It outlines the effects and like what are humans prioritizing? What do humans choose to prioritize? And it's oftentimes animals who, it's impossible that the animal has the ability to be as grateful for something as a human does. I think a good way to define it is that an animal's spectrum of good and evil, it's much narrower. I mean, if a dog is evil, it's like it can do a lot of damage. It could potentially kill a person, but that's not, it likely would get under control, and eventually the dog would just get, if a dog was like on the loose and hurting people, um it would likely get dealt with relatively quickly. I guess the same goes for the example that I say, but when it comes to a human and murder, I mean, it's extremely calculated. There is something extremely evil about like that we have serial killers and like these deep and dark, complex evil archetypes, right? Like they're real. And so the human spectrum for evil is much darker. It's a much deeper and wider spectrum than in animals. I mean, an animal, it just can't be that evil. It's, the spectrum is narrow. But that being said, a human is also substantially more capable of doing good, of having an idea, conceiving it, and executing something that is good in a way an animal just can't ever do. Like, I mean, you can't, I mean, there can be very nice, very good animals, of course, but again, the spectrum, it's much narrower. The amount of good that a cat can do, it's fairly minimal in comparison to a human. I mean, a human can really go above and beyond and just be like really good. It's possible. So it comes down to spectrum and impression. And I think what happens to people is that because pets are easier to comprehend and like basically in their innocence be taken care of, and for people to just get them and understand where they're coming from, there's a bias that goes into play where you have a more favorable connection with an animal. You know, that narrower spectrum actually benefits pets and animals' ability to appeal to humans. Whereas, especially in modernity, humans are at such a wide spectrum. We have such different ideas and opinions and perspectives. It's so complicated. Basically, nobody has the patience for each other anymore. People don't understand each other. People don't understand themselves. But people do understand animals. Like, people do. Animals, they're much more limited, and I think people like that. That there's not really as much of a mystery, or that you can really just chalk it up to, well, it's just a dog. I can't really get that mad at it. Whereas a human, people will bring like a full weight down on you, for making a mistake. But like a dog makes a mistake, and oftentimes there's not really a punishment, you know. Whereas people will punish other people, like much sooner and much quicker. Which again, I mean, it's not like there's really anything wrong with that, because it makes sense that like a human would get punished, whereas a dog wouldn't, because like technically a dog probably doesn't know any better, whereas a human does. But regardless, that isn't always the case. I mean, some humans, it's like, I mean, they mean well, but and that's like a whole other thing to get into. But just imagine if we had that level and that degree of mercy and grace towards humans, not just towards our fuzzy friends who comfort us, but really towards people, and really gave people that level of grace. I really think a lot would change. I think a lot would change for the better. And of course, there still has to be some nuance with that. There are fundamentally evil people where you probably do have to have prison in society. Probably, that's fair. Um, but this is what I'm saying. I mean, I really think people should be given more grace and more understanding. And it's just like a lot of people don't put in the effort. They have a bad experience with some people and then start to hypothesize about how everybody is. And then, next thing you know, they have a bunch of stereotypes and incorrect preconceptions in their head, and they hate people. And so now they turn to, now they like animals more. But I don't think that just happens overnight, you know? Or the other thing is the obvious thing where humans don't value strangers and don't really have a reason to. And a pet is yours. It's your companion. So why would you save the life of a human versus losing the life of your pet? Now, again, for me, if I'm asked that question, it's not. It's like a no-brainer. Like it doesn't really take me that much time to think about it or consider it. I would, yeah. I mean, if it was between a human stranger, they could be a good person, they could be a bad person. No idea. Random stranger dying or my pet dying. I mean, which one really could you live with? Because for me, I couldn't live with knowing that a human died. You see what? Because like to me, that's like, again. I mean, a human. There's so much potential. There's so much sophistication and elaboration for a human. Even if a lot of people do act fairly similar and adjacent to animals, there's so much more going on. There's just so much more, and Yeah, I think for me I mean it's a question I can think about. I can understand both sides, but to me the answer's fairly clear. And I've just found that whenever I've asked that, it seems like everybody would pick their pet and just let a human die. And to me that's wow. I mean, it to me it seems very dark. It to me, but I do see and I understand some of the perspectives. I mean, but at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know. I think human lives are just they're just diminished so deep. And a lot of it has to do with, and I've talked about this before to kind of route it back to what we were talking about originally. It's like because of technology, we're so deeply individualized and like we can't function with each other anymore. That's what happens with technology. It's like you have such varied personalities that you don't like we're starting to get to the point where they always used to say, "Oh, there's other fish in the sea. There's always other fish in the sea. There's always going to be someone out there for you." Guess what? We're learning that that actually isn't necessarily true. In this day and age, it's very possible through excessive screen time that you have nicheified yourself to a point where there isn't anybody else out there like you. Like you are a very hyper individualized manifestation of your brain's potential. Again, through excessive screen use, through rapid short form content, through discovering things, and it leads to again just very complex and there obviously there's that hedonistic cycle in association with it, and there's all kinds of things I could go on about that. It's possible there isn't another fish in the sea. It's possible that there just isn't another person like you and that you're going to be alone now, and it's not really through a fault of your own. It's through a fault of the system that is set up before us. It sets us up to fail. It's setting us up to get addicted to all kinds of things and have the internet provide us all this subjective content, bringing us deeper and deeper down all kinds of rabbit holes. And it makes us a fully actualized version of who we would be as an individual, but it makes it so difficult to interact with others now. And so a part of this, I think, is what adds to the human hate of what we're experiencing now in contemporary culture. And it's human hate. It's like we're sick of each other because there's no connection, there's no way to connect anymore. Like it's like in order for somebody to connect with you, they would have needed to like experience and interact with the same things as you, which would be crazy, and it's impossible at this point. I mean, it's like it gets to the point where you could have two people, they both play Roblox, but they have no idea like, and it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, I like Roblox too. But then like they can't play the game together because there's like thousands if not millions of games on Roblox. So like you're not going to play the same game, and then so you don't even have anything in common anymore. And it's so difficult. It really is very difficult to bond with someone when you don't have anything in common. If you just look at like how stuff works, I mean, it's possible. I think it takes a lot of extra effort. I think I've done it. But it's so much extra effort. I mean, when you can just do something with a person, that's really how you bond. And again, when you get to the point where it's like your TikTok feed is different than somebody else's, and that's what you do with your life, there's not going to be anybody out there like that. Like, you're not going to find somebody who is even remotely, like yourself. You just won't find it. And so, Yeah, I mean, this is like real stuff, you know? And so I think that leads a lot of people because a lot of people don't understand any of that. They haven't thought about it. It's never really been outlined to them or brought up to them. So of course they're going to like pets more because they look at like humans and how terrible humans have been to them. And of course they're going to like it because a pet can be trained to cater to you. A pet is yours, it's your companion. A human has their own self-interest. A pet has their own self-interest, but it's mainly just like getting food. It's you know what I mean? Um, so I think that's a good way to put it. I don't know because I think it's still like a bit of an error and a misconception, and it's one of those things where evil does not help evil. It actually causes it to snowball. You know, the people who feel that way and then put extra effort into animals where it could be going into humans are actually making the world slightly darker, you know, because ultimately an animal it can't be as grateful as a human can. The spectrum, remember, the spectrum, an animal's easier to satisfy. It's simple and it's likely to be grateful for food like, very quickly and easily. But, whereas a human, it's like, well, sometimes food might be, but then humans complain about food, and then food has to be good enough and all these things. But notice, like, I'm not even like that. I mean, I eat the same food all day, refrigerated. I don't heat it up. It's good to not be picky, but obviously, most people, it's like you just want better and better food. You need these like really fancy meals with all these spices, and people go crazy. But there's a higher value to that pickiness. I mean, it means like again, sometimes people are able to sit and eat a meal and be happy. You know, they're just happy with a burger. But some days they're honestly not. Like honestly, some days just a burger isn't going to do it. They're not really going to be that happy with a burger. And they're actually going to need a pizza or they're going to be upset. Right? Like that happens fairly often. People get very picky about food and again, like I said, it's like one day a burger makes them happy, the next day they have to have pizza, the next day they have to have Chinese food. So there's much higher complexity. And people see that as evil, but I don't think it's necessarily evil. It's actually like a higher manifestation of life. It is life that is, if you give a dog Chinese food, they'll just gobble it up. Same as they'll gobble up American food, same as they'll gobble up Italian. I mean, like they don't even know what any of that means. They just know food. So the life is just not it's not as elaborate. It's not as comprehensive. I mean, an animal cannot really experience life in the way that a human can, and it's like it's such an important factor. But again, I mean, there is that kind of like, well, is it better to be gracious? But is there also something to the hedonism or the materialistic ambitions of humanity? Like, there is something to that. I know there's ethical concerns, but I think if you look at it from like a different perspective, there is something to that humans are really able to perfect and move and keep going and achieve and do all kinds of complex and intricate things and appreciate them. But the problem is, of course, at this late stage, there's so many different things and different interests and hobbies that it's relatively difficult to find somebody you really jive with. That's kind of what the problem is. Like, it's just very difficult to do. So, because there's so many different things and there's so many different ways to be satisfied and ways certain people are satisfied and not. But I think you do have to keep both in mind, because at the end of the day, like a hedonistic pursuit, it usually it's usually bad. Like it usually does not help you. I mean, it makes you more interesting as an individual, perhaps. But it also can sometimes make you more boring, right? And so there's a lot that can be said about that. And it's like, should people be grateful? Should people just be happier? Or like, is it okay for us to ask for more? I think really both are okay, and that's like the whole point. Is an animal can't really do that. I think some dogs probably could to some extent, like want more, especially when it comes to things like attention or things like that. But again, with a human, there's just so much more depth and things. And I honestly just think that, again, the complexity and the nature of modern life and modern humans, it just causes people to just throw their hands in the air and give up. But really, if somebody has the proper attention and like battery to think about things and like figure things out, I think there's really something impressive to be had there. Um, there really is. And I think that's why, a part of me actually, as much as I'm critical of modernity, as much as I'm critical of modernity, a part of me feels and knows that I think I can actually appreciate it more than anybody. And I've yet to really find anybody who can. Like when I talk about these things, and I used to kind of hate modernity and modern life and all this stuff, but now it's like I don't really hate it. Like I used to be kind of traditional or kind of more oh, the past was better. I've changed so much. Like I'm starting to kind of get a grapple with reality now. Like there is kind of, it's weird. It's like I became like a mega futurist out of nowhere. Like, and that's kind of why I say I think for most people, modern life is terrible. But there are some people where it's like, I don't know, I think it's kind of cool, right? And there are certain benefits or things like that to keep in mind. Like it's just, that's just how it is. There's a lot of merit to modern life. There is a lot of merit to modern life. So I just think it's interesting to think about. Um, and yeah, I mean but it's interesting again how I have these criticisms, but I just wish people would like come up to the plate and really want and care, if that makes sense. Like it's like, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff that has happened. Equal wages, equal rights. But it's like, does it really matter if people are just going to toss them away out of ignorance or like still cling on to the archaic mindsets that I've talked about before? I mean, how special is it's like it's not really, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how enlightened we've become if it's only going to, like, it's not even going to amount to anything, and we're still going to like fail as a civil, we're going to like regress. I mean, what's going on? Like it's really something. And I guess technology has most of technology is most to do with, I don't know why I'm saying this like so crazily. Most of what it has to do with is technology, but it's again at the same time, technology I think just widens the spectrum. It makes it so a human could theoretically do more good, but really it also opens up the floodgates for doing a lot of horrible things, and so that's the problem, right? It's this conundrum with humanity and how, yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to be evil, they can probably be really evil, and we'll probably see a lot of that. But the potential is still there more than ever to do amazing things with modernity and technology and AI. I mean, its potential is so high, it's just being like not utilized well at all. It's just not, you know. Um, People misuse it, waste it. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things that I don't even, I shouldn't, I don't really have to get into, we've talked about it a lot of times, but anyways, it's been Schla, and now it's time to buy Schla. So, see you, Schla.